Assassin's Creed is a much beloved franchise with a massive global fanbase, and now after years of requests and waiting, it looks like fans are finally getting the Assassin's Creed game they've been wanting for ages in the form of Assassin's Creed codename Red. First revealed back in September 2022, not much about the game is known so far, except for the fact that it's set in feudal Japan and seems to feature 2 different playable characters. But of course, the rumor mill is in full swing with all kinds of info being shared on social media regarding the game's characters, content, and gameplay mechanics. For this reason, we're going to take a closer look at some of these rumors and discuss one of the most controversial ones currently doing the rounds, that one of the playable characters is, in fact, an African samurai, or possibly shinobi. Now before we carry on, bear in mind that none of these rumors have been officially confirmed, and if you're looking for sources, most of this comes courtesy of Insider Gaming, while some of the other points come from John Haag from Reset Era and Arisa Laganzad, who heads up business development and brand partnerships at Ubisoft. Judging by comments on Twitter, it seems like many fans aren't too enthusiastic about an African protagonist. But with that said, there does seem to be quite a lot of interest in the idea that the African samurai character is inspired by the legend of Yasuke, the alleged first black samurai. So what is actually known about Yasuke? Well, not all that much if we're honest. Some sources claim that he held the rank of retainer and was the weapons bearer for none other than Oda Nobunaga, a powerful Japanese magnate known as a daimyo. Others say that he was the first recognized foreigner to achieve the status of samurai. Whatever the truth, it seems that Yasuke was a highly capable and respected warrior, if nothing else. His exact origin is unknown, but it would seem that he was born either somewhere in Ethiopia, South Sudan, or Mozambique. This is a pretty wide geographic area, so it's entirely possible he hailed from some other part of the continent. It's also possible that Yasuke actually became a shinobi, since some historians state that he left Africa as a mercenary, and it's widely held that the shinobi were often hired as mercenaries in Japan. Other accounts suggest that he may have been enslaved and transported to Japan to serve his masters. One thing that is certain is that Yasuke arrived in Japan in 1579 alongside an Italian Jesuit missionary named Alessandro Valignano, possibly serving as his bodyguard or personal aide. Again, many details are based on limited evidence or educated guesses, so it's impossible to know for sure. Yasuke would have towered over the majority of Japanese citizens at the time. Accounts of his physical appearance suggest that he was approximately 6'2" and had skin that was like charcoal. For this reason, after meeting Nobunaga, the feudal lord allegedly had Yasuke stripped and scrubbed as he believed that his skin was dirty. It's said that Yasuke quickly gained favor with Nobunaga and also knew enough Japanese in order to engage in coherent conversation with him. After proving his skills as a warrior, Nobunaga bestowed Yasuke's Japanese name upon him and accepted him into his service, making him the first foreigner to become a samurai, under the proviso that all accounts are accurate, of course. Yasuke would go on to fight in several battles, but in spite of this, his service to Nobunaga was short-lived. About 1 year after Yasuke met the daimyo, Nobunaga was betrayed by his general, Akechi Mitsuhide. When it became clear that he would be defeated, Nobunaga committed seppuku, which is a form of ritualistic suicide among samurai, in order to preserve his honor. It's said that Yasuke may have acted as a kaishakunin for Nobunaga, a second participant in the ritual who cuts off the head of the samurai dying by seppuku. While an interesting thought, this is really just an assumption, so it's not known whether Yasuke actually assisted in the ritual or not. Regardless of whether Yasuke was a samurai or not, his legend is still compelling enough for it to be used as the basis for a playable character in Assassin's Creed. If this is indeed the direction the game is going, then it may just win the hearts and minds of fans across the world. However, it would also seem that a lot of people are worried that the African protagonist may be a refugee and used to make some kind of political statement, which is a legitimate concern given the dire state of the world and popular media at the moment. Of course, all of this could be wrong, but if there was ever an opportunity to make an interesting character based on a person that actually existed in history, then the story of Yasuke is indeed it. If the whole Yasuke angle turns out to be true, then we can make a few more deductions about the historical setting of Assassin's Creed codename Red. Given that Yasuke was in Japan towards the end of the 16th century, the game's events should predate the Edo period, meaning everything should take place in the Azuchi Momoyama period, which is the final phase of the Sengoku period. During this time, Japan underwent political unification whereby all provinces and principalities were brought under the control of the central government. In other words, there was plenty of fighting between different clans and more than a fair amount of political sabotage and subterfuge going on. Just ask Oda Nobunaga. This certainly fits in with the underlying themes of the Assassin's Creed franchise, so I wouldn't be too surprised if these rumors do actually turn out to be true. I know that a lot of people are hoping to play as a shinobi like Hattori Hanzo or samurai like Miyamoto Musashi, and I wouldn't dismiss that completely since these legendary figures more or less fall within the same time period, though Musashi would probably have risen to prominence during the Edo period. Ultimately, the historical events the game depicts will have an influence on who the protagonists are, but even then, while Assassin's Creed games take place within very real historical periods, the narratives they depict are obviously mostly or entirely fictional. And what about the second playable character? Well, according to information that's been released, it's supposed to be an Asian female shinobi, better known as a kunoichi or samurai. Now this is actually an interesting one because it's entirely possible that this character is based on Mochizuki Chiyome, a noblewoman, poet, and kunoichi. Why this is particularly interesting is that she has appeared in Assassin's Creed before, albeit in Assassin's Creed Memories, which was a role-playing card game that was developed exclusively for iOS in 2014 and closed down a few months later in March 2015. In this regard, she hasn't actually made any in-game appearances, so Codename Red may indeed mark her official debut. While her exact birth date is unknown, it's speculated that she was born at some point in the 1530s or 1540s, which would make her somewhere between 30 and 50 by the time Yasuke arrived in Japan. Her exact death date is also unknown, and all accounts of her dry up after the death of Takeda Shingen, another daimyo, in 1573. It's also believed that after her husband was killed at the Fourth Battle of Kawanakojima in 1561, Shingen actually approached her about creating an organization of elite spies that were all women. Given that she has featured in the franchise before and her life story, whether true or not, she seems like the most likely candidate for the other playable character in Codename Red. Obviously I don't know this for sure, but given her backstory in the time period, this seems like the most likely, and possibly only, answer when it comes to the lore behind the Asian female character. I know this may not float everyone's boat, but you have to admit that these two historical figures are fascinating characters who deserve to be immortalized in a great game and legendary franchise. But no matter who the playable characters in the game end up being based on, everything comes down to the ability of the game's developers to create an experience that is truly memorable and well crafted. And the studio confirmed to be developing Codename Red is Ubisoft Quebec, which some fans are apprehensive about, with some going as far as to say that they are the worst studio. I'm honestly not sure what to make of this, but it looks like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which came out in 2018 and was developed by Ubisoft Quebec, seemingly in conjunction with Ubisoft Montreal, has received very high praise for the most part. Maybe I just don't know enough about this, but Ubisoft Quebec appear to be very capable, at least on the surface. However, if I'm wrong about this and you can explain why they are indeed the worst studio, please let me know in the comments below. One thing that is supposed to be returning in Codename Red is stealth, though again, this is just a rumor right now. Several fans don't actually believe that stealth is coming back, at least not in this release, but regardless, Codename Red should allow you to hide bodies and for you to hide in tall grass. You're also supposed to be able to extinguish lights and torches so you can move in darkness and slip by your enemies undetected. This all sounds good to me, and I wish I could tell you for certain that this will be in the game, but the truth is, I just don't know for sure. If it's any consolation, Codename Red should be the last game in the franchise to follow the direction that was introduced in Assassin's Creed Origins, which I think most fans of the older games will be happy to hear. Of course, Codename Red is still supposed to use this approach, so for this reason, many fans have sworn off the game already. I really do hope that Assassin's Creed Codename Red will be a big hit with fans, but there's a fair amount of skepticism just from the rumors that have been circulating right now. I personally don't think there's anything wrong with who they choose to base their characters on, and that execution is everything here. If Ubisoft Quebec can develop an exciting game with intriguing characters and an amazing plot, then I don't think fans will mind terribly if one of the playable characters is based on Yasuke or even just of African descent. There's no set release date for the game yet, and while it's possible that it may come out in 2024, my gut tells me that a 2025 release is more likely. When it does release, the assumption is that it'll be available on PlayStation, Xbox, and PC, but just wait for official confirmation on that before you get too excited. And that brings this video of ours to an end. So what are your thoughts on all these rumors? And for that matter, what are your feelings in terms of the Yasuke connection? And how about Chiyome? Let me know in the comments. Please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more killer gaming, VR, and tech content. From me and the crew here at Metasquad, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Later!